picture manipulation by voice input by Uma Alpha Khan. You can correct this and start to tell the introduction.
First of all, I must say that I'm humbled by the nice research paper that I've seen today, and this is the work that I have done. My name is Gameon Conference, and the other author is my sensei, Yoshihiro Okada. And this work is basically, I came to Japan in October, and I selected that my PhD topic, and I worked on it for a few weeks. And my paper is based on that work. So the amount of work that I had done by the time I wrote this paper was not a lot, but I think that the idea was quite new, and I hope that you will find it interesting. So the first thing is that when we talk about graphics and creativity, the problem is that the creativity is currently, when we talk about graphics, is limited to few studios. You might have heard about Pixar, or you might have heard about different companies like Crytek or id Software, which are very good at making graphics, but the problem is that creativity remains in those companies. So if you want to create something, it's either very expensive, and if you want to get something made, you have to pay a lot. So if you have some idea, you want to tell your story, you cannot translate it into meaningful graphics unless you know a few tools by yourself. So the idea is that you get the power of making your own stories and your own graphics. So creating a new world, this is actually the screenshots from my own work that I have done. So the aim is that you create a living and breathing world as you speak to the computer. So you start speaking, and the terrain, it generates all by itself automatically. And the concept is that every time the terrain that is generated is random. So even if you're telling the same story, you might not get the same terrain every time. As seen over here, in this paper, what I'm concentrating on is setting up the scene. So when we begin, we have this flat surface and a cloudy atmosphere, and by the time the user finishes, he can create something like this. There's snow terrain, there's river, there's a different style background. So that is what the aim is. So the user is able to define the scene by creating mountain, etc. The generation of terrain elements is random, so that the user considers telling the story rather than trying to do that terrain elements. Again, the idea is that the different graphics creation software, they give you the tools to fine-tune the terrain. So if you are telling a story, you don't want to fine-tune a mountain, you don't want to fine-tune a river. You want to just tell your story so that there is no breaks. You just start telling your story, and it's generated automatically. Later on, I plan on putting in tools which will help you fine-tune the terrain generation as well. But currently, I'm not focusing on that. So the technology that I'm using is, first of all, the Microsoft Kinect device, the XML Game Development Library, Visual Studio 2010 Express. The Kinect technology, why I chose it, because it's fairly cheap, and it has a microphone array, so it records your sounds. It's very good at recording your sounds, like hearing your sound, what you're saying. So the results are quite good. I will show you a demonstration about how it works. So this is the basic idea. The user, he says something, Microsoft Kinect, it takes the voice input. The voice input is converted to text through Microsoft Speech API. It differentiates between the different verbs or adjectives using the natural language processing engine. This part I have yet to develop. So currently I'm only working on the words that we use to speak. Converting text to generate terrain 3D content by Microsoft XML and 3D repository, and we get something like a terrain out of that. So I have made up a component which is called the land elements creator, and basically it creates a different elements on the land. One of the elements, I'm going to talk about two elements. The first one is the mountain, the second is the river. So these are created in real time as we speak the software. Now for generating the mountain, I'm using the diamond square algorithm. I tried a few other algorithms, so this has produced fairly good results. So currently I'm using this algorithm for mountain generation. So if you have a plane like this and you start saying mountain, you get the mountains generated over the terrain. Now the algorithm for generating the river is that you have this terrain, and you take a random line that joins the two opposite ends, and then you divide it into factors of 4. Then later you add some random factor to all those points, so you get a jagged line. And then I use a cubic Bezier curve to form a smooth river out of it. So the result is like this, so you don't get a very jagged river, you get a fairly smooth river. And then I'm also using multi-texturing in order to define the terrain. So it's based on height map, so the higher the height, the terrain changes, the texture changes this and that. And so there's an example, like over here the height is quite high, it's very close, so it looks like this is the top of a mountain, so you have a snow texture. But as you go down, you have the grass texture, and over here, as we are nearing to the river, we have the earth texture over here, the sand texture. So the results are, a user can quickly generate a totally random and unique word in a matter of seconds by just saying what he wants. Currently, the alterations that he can do are limited, and unless you speak the right words, you do not generate the right terrain. With implementation of larger vocabulary with proper language processing ability, the results can be improved exponentially. So the results are before user manipulation is you have something like this, and after user manipulates it, you get something like this. So this is basically more of a proof of concept. I intend to increase it with time, with more objects, more textures, so it will improve. So the challenges which need to be overcome. So this is a very, you can say, a broad design overview. You have a natural language processing component, you have the land element creator, you will have a physics engine. This part is partially implemented. Particle implementation also has been partially implemented. And I also decided on defining my own objects and my own textures, because when we talk about texture, we basically talk about some image. But the aim, what I wanted was that when we talk about texture, we also talk about the properties of the object. For example, if you are saying brick, it should have brick properties. Physical, if you should say wood, it should have wood properties. So if the wood is on fire, then it should also have particles which are coming out of it. So that's why I have this particle engine. So this meta texture, it has all those properties of physics, it has the particles, and it has the object properties. This meta object, it basically composes this meta texture. So an object, I can define it as a sphere, and later on I decide that, okay, it's not suitable as a sphere, I should make it as a cube. So the properties of the object remain the same, but only the model changes. So the model will change from a sphere into a cube. So that can be done easily. And adding objects to the game world. This, as you see over here, this is the same cube model, but there are different textures on it. And these can be generated if you just say the right words. So that is the next step, which it has been partially implemented, very, very basic implementation. So, but this is already working, this part. So, and the most important part is the natural language processing. So, basically, the host project relies on this one. So, I have to make a very good natural processing engine which identifies what the user is saying. So, this component must understand the words that are being spoken, be able to differentiate between the different speech like nouns, verbs, and pronouns, and be able to create a relationship between each. So, so every story, when we tell that story, we should make a relationship tree so that every object has a relationship to a certain object. So that it needs to find out through the text. and that will be done through natural language processing. And once all the relationship has been found, it creates the object. So I read a few papers, and it seems to me that information extraction will be the main focus of this project. And through information extraction, we generate tokens. From tokenization of the text, we get the elements, and from elements, we check your database if you have a certain object in your database, and then you generate the object. So the conclusion is the current technology has come to a point where computers have started to understand the human voice and gestures. The graphic technology can create many complex objects. The aim is to provide user a lot of flexibility in creating this story, and we believe that such technology will have a lot of utility, both academically and industrially. Because once you think about generating your own storyboards, or you can give directions to someone. Like if he wants to find like where something is, you can just start telling like where certain thing is, and all the path will be generated by itself. You can tell your own story. So currently, I think that it will have a lot of utility in the future. So here's a demonstration. I should turn on the volume first.
Mountain, river, snow, rock, night, stars, forest, mountain, snow, afternoon, clouds, box, wood,
So in the last demonstration, it was basically created a material which is, I call it rubber. So it keeps on bouncing as soon as I say wood. So it property changes the physical properties also the texture. So it just falls flat. So one thing if you notice that. So the aim is to further enhance it in the future. So thank you for your question.
Any question? So is your system installed with that PC?
No, unfortunately, I wanted to make it run over here, but I couldn't get it to work over here. So because recently Microsoft Kinect, it was for Xbox, their SDK, but they have just released it for the Windows. So the version for the Xbox is giving me problems with the newer SDK that they have released. So since I was working on the system.
Any questions? Now, so currently you cannot specify position, right? For example, if I want a mountain in the middle of the area, so if you cannot.
Yes, that is done intentionally, kind of, because once you are telling a story. For example, there's a story of Little Red Riding Hood. So you start out by saying, once there was a girl named Little Red Riding Hood. She lived in a forest, in a hut, in a forest. So you don't want to say that the forest is near a mountain and there is a river. You can be specific. So the idea is that currently it's generating it randomly, but with time when the whole system is coming together, and then I'll have to focus on where the camera is looking, and based on where the camera is looking, I have to generate the object based on its where the camera is looking, so that the user always sees what he is creating. So, but currently it's random, and I plan on keeping it active forever.
So, do you have any plan to have interact mechanism for the user to interact? For example, if you like to change a little bit the position or something.
Yes.
Do you have plan to let the user do that, or you just no?
No, currently I do plan on doing that. That is the reason why I use the Microsoft Kinect, because it has this 3D camera and it can detect your hand movements. So, but that is something which I want to add later on, because the main concept is that you tell a story, you don't want to focus on placing things on the story. So, because this system simply converts the voice into text, so I can always take any text and give it to the system, and even though I don't have the voice, so it can generate everything based on the text. So if I add this functionality that you have to fine tune every time, then if you give it any text, it will keep on asking you, like, I'm creating a mountain, where should I create it? I'm creating a river, where should I create it? So I want to remove that there. But that kind of functionality can be added later on.
Yeah, what you have shown is that you create, based on your descriptions, you create objects in an environment. But a story is something else. The story is dynamic, and it has actors that interact and do something together and have an effect on the environment. Is that also possible with your system?
Yes, if you at the end of the demonstration, I showed you that there's a box which is pointing, and when it says wood, it just falls flat. I can show that again.
No, I remember that, but there is dynamics, of course, and then the objects change. Yes. But when you have a story, it's also it's not just objects; it's also characters interacting.
Yes, the idea is that in future, what will happen, every object will be made up of a collection of objects. In fact, for organic objects, I will have a complete bone structure. Because all organic objects, they have a specific uniform bone structure. You have all the complex objects, they have a backbone, and all the limbs are attached to the backbone. So if I want to say that there is a boy will be created with 2 arms and 2 legs. But then I say that the boy has wings. So I need to put in the wings at the proper place in the. But then I will have to look at the bone structure of a bird, and I will have to compare it with that, and then with the boy, and then combine them, both of them together. That's something which I aim to do in future. So currently, what I have done is that you define an object, and you can change its properties like particles and its physics. And later on, what will happen is that if you say that there's a boy, he has wings, and he's made up of wood. So first of all, he will have you can say a human appearance, and we could change it to a wood appearance. And then, not to sound very barbaric, you can say that the boy is on fire, so only wood can catch fire. So at that point, the particles of the boy, they will start to show fire on top of the boy. So that is also that's how the interaction will go. And if he comes in contact with other objects which are made up of wood, they will also catch fire. So that's why the particles were very important, and the physics part was important. So I plan to do it in the long run. So yes, the answer to your question is yes.
Wonderful.
Quite challenging.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Seems that you have plenty of topics for your PhD.
Yes, that's what happened when I told this topic to my sensei. He said that.
Professor.
Yeah.
So he said that it's very challenging, and then I said, "Isn't challenging good?" He said, "Yes, it is good." so that's how we chose the topic that I should follow this topic as my PhD topic.
Okay. So we a little bit early, but okay.